All right, we are back live on Locker Room talking about the first episode of Loki. It's your boy Pat Lane, as always. Emily Davis is with me today. Emily, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like this is a whole new, once again, it's a show that's not like anything else. And so I felt like I needed to be here to hear what you had to say.
Well, and you know what it is, and you're so totally right about that because, you know, at the end of the first episode, what I was left with, and similar to WandaVision, where it's like, I have no idea what is going on right now, right? Like, obviously, some things happen, and we're going to get into it, but like, the rules, the normal rules of the MCU are completely out the window, right? Like, when we watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, yeah, it was intriguing, and there was stuff going on, and like they were, looking at political things and all sorts of things that revolved around the snap and or the blip and everything else. But the idea was that we're still playing under the same rules as the normal MCU. But with WandaVision and now with Loki, same deal. Like, we are completely outside the realm of the MCU. And like there is no telling what is going to happen at this point. And so I think that to me is the most interesting thing about this. And and not only that, but I think Tom Hiddleston himself as an actor, you know, if he's not the best actor in the MCU, he is without a doubt top 5, just pure acting ability. And the scene that I always go back to, the one that I always go back to, is the one in Ragnarok with him, Odin, and Thor. And Odin says to them, "I love you, my sons." And there's no dialogue from Hiddleston, but that moment on his face, you can just see all of the years, all of the pain, just kind of wash away from him, in this like great relief sweep over him, almost, where like he's just so happy that Odin like calls him his son and like really believes it and feels it. And I think that it's not something that a lot of people can do. And Razine, you're right about Robert Downey Jr., I think. And here's Josh. We'll let him up here. You're right about Downey Jr., and Downey Jr. is an amazing Iron Man.
Glorious purpose, glorious return. But don't say anything, because I haven't watched it yet.
You haven't watched it yet? Jesus Christ.
Bro, you know what I've been dealing with.
No, I know.
I completely forgot that it even fucking came out yet. I'm over here thinking, okay, I'm gonna, just settle in. I only got here like 3 hours, three and a half hours.
I was gonna say, you probably just got in, yeah.
I'm gonna watch an episode of Sweet Tooth and go to bed. And now
I know.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Watch an episode of Loki and go to bed.
Oh, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, real good. So,
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's great. We'll have to chat about it after you watch it. But
absolutely,
it is it's quite good. I'm glad to see you're back in Florida, and everything's going all right.
Yeah, it'll be an adjustment period, but
of course, yeah.
I'm just happy to be back on here and talking to my guys. Great. Never mind. Here I go. I'm leaving
now. Sean, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys? Hello, Emily. Hello, Pat. Josh.
Hey.
Yeah, but I'll let you guys get back to it. I don't want to ruin the flow of the conversation, but
next week, Josh. Next week for sure.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back on, my friend. Enjoy the first episode, and glad you're doing well. My love to your family.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, brother.
I wish I had more time. I would have tried to meet up with you. I was just running around like an asshole.
You know what? I was going to text you, and then I was like, you know what? Like, he's got all sorts of stuff going on. I figured if you had time, you'd reach out, so I didn't want to bother you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wanted to, but it's just and I haven't even had time to fucking grieve, man, from everything like that. It just hit my son when we came down here. He had my dad's memorial picture, and, he just, broke down, and it was just like, oh, fuck. Here we go. But not killing the vibes. Let's go. Loki episode 1, glorious purpose, glorious people, glorious return. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, brother. Take care.
See you soon.
All right, Sean. What do you? So we were just chatting about the best actors in the MCU, and I was saying that Hiddleston might be. I don't know if he's number one, but he's close. And I think Downey. I would say this: Downey might be the best character in the MCU. Like he is Iron Man, right? They changed the character in the comic to look like Robert Downey Jr. He literally is Iron Man at this point. But I think just as a straight up actor, I think Hiddleston, again, if he's not number one, I mean, ScarJo obviously is in the MCU. Jeremy Renner's a great actor as well. I just think like as just a straight up actor, he's definitely top five. And listen, if you want to put Downey Jr. ahead of him, I don't think I wouldn't necessarily argue with that because I think Downey's a great actor as well. But I think he's definitely top five, and so it's interesting to see kind of where this show is going.
Oh, I think that Hiddleston absolutely is the second best after Downey. And the reason why is because I think the way that you can define it is this, is that when you talk about Loki, and I am a huge, huge mythology buff as well, you talk about Loki from Norse mythology, you talk about Loki from the God of War series that's coming on, you talk about Loki, there are popular authors who have written books, things like that. Whenever you think about Loki, you think of Tom Hiddleston. And it's not just the acting and the overall, impact that he has as that actor. It's the smirks. You want to talk about an actor defining a role. The image that you think when you hear Loki is the evil smirk that he has, which he's perfected. It is absolutely impressive. And one of the things that excites me the most about Loki in this series is that we've seen that character grow and evolve more than just about any character in the MCU. But the thing about this version of Loki that we get to see is we've already seen him do it. Now we're getting to the starting point of getting to see him do it again because this isn't the same Loki that unfortunately was killed in Infinity War. This was the Loki coming right off what happened in Avengers. And you get to see that character transformation once again and how well Hiddleston did it throughout the entire movies. We get to see it back
Yeah.
to back.
Well, I think to your point, Pat, about the scene in Ragnarok where when their father, Hege and Thor have their final goodbye with Odin, and we watch him have this like the natural moment of someone needing to say goodbye to someone that they've loved and had a complicated relationship with. You watch him have a slightly different version of that exact same reaction in this episode because like Sean just said, he's not the same I'm just going to say man. Obviously he's God. He's not the same man who did have that moment with his father because he hasn't lived through the things that happened since then to that point. So he's watching it with like a sense of confusion that he doesn't even really like totally understand what led to it. He probably is watching it and doesn't even see there's a whole layer to it of like experiencing something but not understanding what's happening but thinking you're supposed to, and be like the confusion of all of it. And you watch all of that play out when he watches his mother die, when he watches his father die, and you see all of that in like 2 minutes, and he manages to put all of those layers together in 2 minutes, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's so impressive what he does, and I think the transformation that you're talking about is great. And here's the thing about it for me is that it's drawing parallels to strong parallels, I think, to two other people in the MCU. So number one would be Nebula, and of course Nebula sees her future self, right, and the fact that her future self has turned good, right, was evil or was bad and turned good, and she wasn't able to overcome that, right? She wasn't able to become what she was years into the future, right? She wasn't able to kind of wrap her head around that. And then the other one, I think that this is a stronger comparison, and they do it right off the bat. Scene one, right off the bat, he lands in the desert, right? And when he lands in the desert and stuff is sprayed all around him, right? He's got like, the chains that were around him are all over. He's got debris all around him, just like Tony Stark in Iron Man, and where Stark kind of makes that transformation from billionaire like playboy to like actual hero, right? And I think that's that transformation where, of course, Downey Jr. wasn't necessarily a bad guy on purpose, but he was selling weapons to all the wrong people and everything else and doing all that bad stuff. And he decided that he was going to change what he did kind of at that moment. And of course, it wasn't that moment, but you know what I mean? Like that kind of same parallel. And I think that's a very strong, clear parallel that they were intentionally making. And so I think, and just the fact that 2012 Loki now knows that he's loved by his mom, by his dad, by his brother, like feels accepted and feels loved. And that's so cool. Like that and of course you see in the end, which isn't good, right? But like, it's interesting to kind of see where he's going and what they're going to do with him as this variant.
Well, I think part of what makes the like unpredictability of this show so appealing too is, first of all, I don't know about you two, but when the credits started rolling, I was like not ready for the episode to end, and not in a way that like I want to binge it, but I didn't expect it to end in that moment, and I was kind of thrown by that in like I mean, obviously I wanted more, so I was like kind of disappointed, but I felt like there's something is about I still think he hasn't totally let go of like the person that he is in present tense in the show. Like he's still Loki in 2012. He hasn't made that transformation entirely. But I think to be able to say that like he doesn't understand, he has a weird moment, like seeing the end of his timeline run and realizing that for all of his like smugness and smart assness and trickery and intelligence, like he can't outwit himself, and is kind of like he's scared. I think moments in throughout the films when he's kind of caught on the wrong side of a moment, he's not necessarily scared because he always still thinks he can like talk himself out of something or outwit the other person. But I think for the first time he realized like he has nowhere to go. And so it made it kind of disappointing to not see just like a little bit of what's supposed to happen next. And I think he hasn't, a big part of his transformation and a big part of Robert Downey of Iron Man's transformation, of Tony's transformation, is having a connection with another person, and he clearly doesn't have a connection with Agent Mobius yet. So I think a lot of those kind of like moments where people come around is because they have a connection, they build a connection with someone, and he's kind of doing that. He has to do that, I guess, with Agent Mobius, but he also has to do it with himself because he's now learned about like what his life could have been, but he may have just screwed it up. So, but yeah, I was disappointed when the show ended. I was like, wait a second, it's already done.
And I think that you hit on something that's very important, Emily, is that when it comes to Loki, while he is a manipulator and while he is a mischievous, whatever you want to call it, there are two things that he had the ability to do in his life. He had a support system that he could manipulate. And though he didn't trust those people, he trusted himself in that environment because he could manipulate. He knew his surroundings, he knew his environment. He knew